what's the covenant mean? Marriage. That when you hear the word covenant, you have to think marriage.
Can you also say promise?
Yes, but it's more than that. It's more intimate.
A contract.
And it's not a business agreement. A contract is a business agreement. You work for me, and you fix my roof, and once you're done, goodbye. Right? A marriage is an eternal bond until death. You are in a covenant going from one person and one person to two people and then their own family. It is a family building, kinship building relationship. When God makes a covenant with you, he is expanding his family from himself to you. Okay? Got it? So it's not like hiring a maid or a carpenter. They're there for a certain amount of time for a certain duty, and then they're dismissed. When you marry someone, it's until death do you part. Got it? So it's deeper, more intimate, and longer lasting than a contract. Most people mistake a covenant for a contract. It's not what it is. These covenants are promises, oaths, vows, sworn by God to the people that he covenants with. And all of these are called monocleric covenants. They're one way, except the Sinai covenant, which is called a dipleric covenant, which means it goes both ways. If you do this, God says, I will bless you. If you do this, I will curse you. Okay? All the other promises are one way. God says to Adam, I am going to send you a redeemer. It doesn't matter whether you obey me or not, I'm sending the redeemer. Got it? When God covenants with Noah, he says, I will no longer destroy the world by flood. It has nothing to do whether you obey him or not. God says he'll do it. That's that. God says to Abraham, I'm going to make your name great, I'm going to make you a nation, and I'm going to bless the world through you. Whether you obey me or not, it is going to happen. Get it? When we get to the Mosaic covenant, this is when it splits. God promises to Israel, I will be your God, and you will be my people, if you obey my voice and keep my covenant. And if you do, these are the blessings that will fall upon you. And when you break my covenant, these are the curses that will fall upon you. Got it? So there's a conditionality with that covenant. Then we move to King David. One of your descendants, David, will sit on the throne of Israel forever. Period. Got it? It didn't matter that there were several kings in the line of David that were so wicked that God cursed their lines. But he still said, I'm going to sit someone on your throne forever. And did he fulfill that? He certainly did. Who is that person that sits on the throne of Jesus? He is the legitimate heir to King David. And there is no one else alive that can say that. No one. There are no descendants of St. Joseph alive. None. Zero. You know why? Because he and Mary never had any children. Joseph is the end of the physical Davidic line beyond Jesus. But is Jesus his son?
No.
No. No. Because didn't I tell you God cursed the line because the kings were so wicked? That curse came to an end with St. Joseph. But continues with Jesus because Mary is also a descendant of David. Remember, we went over this. And he fulfills the covenant God made with David and ends the curse.
Is Joseph of the house of David? Was Mary also of the house of David?
Yes. But not of the royal legal lineage.
Was that?
Well, David had several sons through various wives. Only one son was the legal heir to sit on the throne, Solomon. Mary is a descendant of David, but through one of the Prince Imperials, Nathan, who never sat on the throne. Okay. So she is of a legitimate physical descendancy to David, but does not have the legal right to sit on the throne. Solomon did, and his son Rehoboam, and then his son Asa, and then his son Jehoshaphat. Okay, you keep going, you get to St. Joseph from that line. Okay. But Mary is through Nathan, this other prince, and so on, so on, so on, so on. Not the legal, they didn't have a legal right to sit on the throne. She's royal, but not of a legal right to sit on. Joseph should have been sitting on the throne, not Herod. He had the legal right to sit on the throne of David.
Is Herod of the line of David?
No. He wasn't even a Jew. He was an Edomite. Yes. Yes, Robert.
Chip, in reference to covenant with Moses.
Yes.
It's a reciprocity. Is this where we get to? Is it true that God blesses those who bless Israel and curse Israel?
In an indirect way, they participate in the covenant by doing that, yes.
And I remember you saying that all covenants are still hold today.
Correct.
So it still happens today. If you're going to curse Israel, you're going to be cursed. And if you bless Israel, you're going to be blessed.
Yes. And who is Israel?
Israel
You're looking at them.
is the church.
It's the church. If you curse the church, you're cursing yourself.
So it's not in reference to Israel.
It's not reference to real estate in the Middle East. Just like the ritual sacrifices and the kosher laws were only given to Israel during that time and are no longer valid for us now. That's not how we identify ourselves. That was giving Israel their identity as a nation in the world, to set them apart, to make them different. Those are no longer necessary. The moral laws are still in effect, the Ten Commandments, etc. But the ritual and ceremonial laws are not in effect. And the cursing of Jewish people, if you will, has been, if you will, replaced by the blessing and cursing of the church, which is Israel 2.0. Which is made up of both Jews and Gentiles. So again, we need to take the injunctions about those who bless you, I will bless; those who curse you, I will curse, as not physical Jews, but spiritual. The people that are in the covenant relationship with God. That would be a better way to understand it. Before Jesus came, the only people who were in covenant relationship with God were the Jews. After Jesus, those who are in covenant relationship with God is the church, which is made up of Jews and Greeks, Jews and non-Jews. You see that?
So I'm just concerned that many people, including myself, find that we don't want anything to happen in Israel at all, and the nation is not existing.
Right.
That if it's been destroyed, I think it's catastrophic. I think that we have to be wrong. But I think there's going to be a definite negative result of that if that stays abolished.
I think I hear what you're saying, and I would just want to add that this is a common, what he's talking about, if you can't hear, is like, we should be afraid to not speak ill of the nation of Israel nowadays, lest the curses that befell, that were written in the Old Testament befall upon us. I hear what you're saying, and this is a, how do I put this? This is very prevalent amongst evangelicals. They have a high regard for the nation of Israel, and they revere it almost to a no-fault position. In other words, Israel could do whatever it wants, and we would say, oh, good, 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 glory to God. And I would say, no, Israel can do things as a nation in the world wrong, and that's not to be blessed. But I think that they're coming back, the revival, the renewal of the state of Israel, the reestablishment of their existence is a remarkable sign of our times, and not to be taken too lightly. And the fact that they have survived countless wars of destruction shows that God is not finished with the physical Jewish race, I would say. I think that much could be said. You following me? But as far as the covenant relationship, you have to understand that modern day Israel is not a religious state. It's not a theocracy. It's a democratic republic, similar to England. That it has a parliament called the Knesset. That is, by the way, it's the only democracy in the Middle East. Do you aware of that?
Yes.
Everything,
God bless them.
everyone around them, Jordan, Egypt, even Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, they're all run by caliphates or emirs, kings. I mean, there's the present king of Jordan. Yeah, Abdullah. So Israel is the only democracy in that part of the world. That in of itself says something. And the reason why is because they were once a British colony. And Britain owned it prior or after Britain got that region, actually all of the region from what is modern day Israel to Iran during the First World War. And it later broke up into several states after the First World War. And then after the Second World War, the nation of Palestine was then given to Jews as a homeland. And that's when the nation of Israel was born. Okay? And this was obviously after the Holocaust that had happened under Nazi Germany. Because one of the things that happened during that time is that when Jews were fleeing Europe, there was no place for them to go. They didn't have a homeland to go to. And so afterwards, the establishment of their own homeland was kind of a way of saying, we will never let that happen, what happened in Europe again, because Jews will have a safe haven to come to. And since that time, Jews have been emigrating from literally all over the world to Israel At this point in our history, the amount of Jews living in Israel is almost equal to that are living in the United States. There's approximately 7 or 8 million Jews that live in the state of Israel. Approximately. And the ones around the world outside of Israel in the United States, I think amount to about another 1 million total, I believe. Double check my world facts when you go into that, but I'm pretty sure if I'm not exactly close, I'm close enough. You know what I'm saying? So the only place that is a safe haven for Jews in the world today is the United States and Israel. Okay? So just something to think about there. All right? Virtually all over the world, the Jewish population has been diminishing because of immigration. They've emigrated from the other lands to Israel so that they won't experience the anti-Semitism that is experienced around the world, even today. Even today. Now, all that to say is, there is something that God has special for the Jews, physical Jews. But I would say that the injunction isn't towards the nation per se, because they can still do wrong, all right? Because they're not they're a secular state. It's not run by Jewish law like it was at the time of David, all right? They're a democratic society, okay?
With 3 religions.
And the more religious Jews are a minority, a very small minority actually within the nation of Israel. You following me? So I would be weary to curse Jews. I wouldn't say curse anyone, frankly. But even more so Jewish people, because they are of the physical descendancy that God established with Abraham. But that chosenness has been extended by Jesus to the world.